Hello and welcome to the Wardroom, a podcast dedicated to the leadership development of the U.S. Navy's engineering duty officers. I'm your host, Lieutenant Commander Matthew Horton. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Rear Admiral Doug Small. Admiral Small is currently serving as the Program Executive for Integrated Warfare Systems. He has recently been confirmed for his second star and named as the next commander for Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. So grab a cup of coffee and join us in the Wardroom. Admiral Small, first off, congratulations, sir, and welcome to the Wardroom.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So we'd like to begin by asking you to share a little bit about your leadership philosophy and if you have any words of wisdom for our audience.
Sure. I guess I'll just start with leadership at at all levels, and what I would say is, leaders are needed. Now as much or if not more than ever. Whether it's re-entering or now firmly in the midst of great power competition with specifically China and Russia. Budget issues continuing. Trying to recapitalize so much of our fleet at the same time. Trying to get after sort of all three legs of our nuclear triad. We're in the midst, obviously, of a global pandemic that's changing. Everything from how we do our business to how we sustain our fleet, to how we operate our ships and submarines. And then, of course, we have the when we all got to witness the murder of George Floyd, we've come face to face with some uncomfortable racial bias issues that we absolutely have to address head on. Finding out that we have a whole lot of our teammates have kind of been living with these biases for some time, and it's something that we have to get after head on, and that's certainly something the Navy's not shying away from, and certainly nor are we in this PEO or as your engineering duty officer leadership. So leaders needed, technically leaders needed for our people as well. Because the thing is at the end of all of this, whether it's the competition or coming through the budget or any of these other issues, we still have to maintain the world's greatest Navy and Marine Corps team. So it's a heavy burden on our community. So kind of switching into sort of my part of the engineering duty officers, we're basically program managers in the PEOs, and myself being both I kind of straddle the cannon cockers and the information warfare team, and for us what we do is we grow program managers. That's our command. And so I usually give this talk to people that are aspiring to be it. It's kind of like, what as a PEO, what do I look for in a program manager? And the first thing for me is passion. It's that sort of fire in the belly, that desire to win, just getting after the business of being a program manager. I expect PMs to be the smartest person in the room, and that doesn't mean that maybe there's some stump the chump type question that they may not know or they may have to look up, but by and large, that person has to have command of their program, or in many cases portfolio programs, absolute command of it. You got to know your numbers. You have to be able to execute. And when I mean numbers, I mean you got to understand the technical underpinnings, the technical requirements, all of your financial, contractual, everything. It all has to come together with the PM, and you have to know those numbers, and you have to know them cold. I expect our PMs to be expert in their profession, meaning I want them to understand what's in the DoD 5000 and all those other things, and really understand kind of what drives our corner of this profession, because I want them to understand everything that's available for them to get their job done, not necessarily as a checkbook, a checklist, but as a way of understanding just sort of how to get things done. And then the last thing is this, Secretary Gertz calls it an abundance mindset. The way I talk about it is I expect PMs to get things done despite the system. It's really easy to sit back and say, oh my gosh, I took another mark, or, this person wants another briefing on this, that, or the other, so, getting ideas, through the Pentagon or, through the Congress is tough business, but using an abundance mindset, I expect people to get stuff done despite it. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in program managers.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. So now, Admiral, I think we're going to roll into some questions that we've been getting from the engineering duty officer community. And actually, the first one we have, I think, is a good tie-in with regards to our comments about PMs being the smartest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of questions from the EDOs about the necessity of getting a technical master's degree. Would you mind explaining the purpose behind that requirement and why it's so important that we do have that strong technical background?
Sure. And it kind of starts with something, one of my mentors, Admiral Page, told me a long time ago, is that, we're naval officers first. And a naval officer means a leader, right? So you're a leader. And in the engineering duty community, you're expected to lead, teams of smart people to solve really hard problems. But it's about leadership. It's not specific to, the degree that you get, but we require a certain level of technical training in order to make sure that, you're able to lead that team of people to solve hard problems. And that's, whether it's a master's or as a PhD. Usually this question is asked in the sense of, when will I be able to use my degree? It turns out that, the Navy has in the labs, scores of people that have been studying your field for, in some cases, many dozens of years. That's the person that you end up having to lead, not necessarily pull out your slide rule and go toe to toe doing, solving, partial differential equations with them. It's all about leadership. So naval officer first, but you're a technical leader, solving some really hard problems on behalf of the Navy. So, our answer to that is, getting a technical master's degree, sometimes even a PhD or, an engineer's degree, something to that effect, just to kind of get you that, at least the base educational training on solving hard problems, because that's what we ask you to do, is lead people to solve hard problems.
Well, thank you, sir. That's it's enlightening. It's good to hear. So our next question is one having to do with readiness, and you kind of had mentioned to the return to great power competition. So in that context, and also keeping in mind the competition conflict spectrum, can you speak to the importance of the fight tonight concept and how we as engineering duty officers stay plugged into the operational fleet?
Sure. And I'll kind of pull it up a level to discuss, just sort of, leadership in this environment. And it does kind of flow from this great power competition. And the first notion is that strategy has to drive prioritization of resources. A knee-jerk reaction of people when a new strategy comes along is to show everybody what you're already doing and how it fits with their new strategy. And leadership is actually about changing what you're doing to fit the new strategy. In this case, our strategy is all about great power competition in alignment with the National Defense Strategy, the Navy strategy, designed for maintaining maritime superiority, the leader development framework. All of that is in alignment with delivering the toughness and tenacity, the systems, the ships, everything required to get after this great power competition. We have sailors in harm's way right now. it just, read the paper. I recommend The Economist, kind of looking ahead to, maybe a book recommendation, but just see what's going on in the South China Sea, up in the high north where we're operating up there, in the Black Sea, certainly in the Mediterranean, the Eastern Med. Our sailors are in harm's way right now. Basically taking it to any would-be adversaries 24/7, and they absolutely deserve our best. So, fight tonight, for me, means that we don't leave any redundancy at the pier. So, job one is we got to get the ships and submarines underway, right? And so, CNO's number one priority, NAVSEA's number one priority, on-time delivery of ships, submarines, and systems. It's absolutely, step one in fight tonight is be able to get underway. We don't have enough ships and submarines to answer every, desire for ships all over the world. The ones we do have, we have to make sure that they get out there, and that also includes, sailors need to be trained, especially in this, pandemic. We're learning a whole lot about how much more self-sufficient we need to be, and that falls on us too, right, to deliver training materials and everything else. So a lot of work going on there. We try to drive CAS reps to zero. Before strike groups deploy, they want no CAS reps, and we try to back that up so that even at their major exercises and their buildups, that the systems just plain work, so they can train on the systems as a strike group and not have to worry about maintenance and repair while operating. It's so for us that's a big part of what we do here in IWS. We have a lot of cradle to grave responsibility over the systems. Other aspects is expeditionary logistics, right? We sort of got kind of into this mode of go park our ships in an op area and send strikes into land. That's not the way we operate anymore. So we're back to things like dynamic force employment and things like that are changing the way we can deliver parts and tech assists and everything else. So we have to be much more expeditionary in our mindset, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. But we have to be constantly questioning how are we going to get the support required forward to keep our ships and systems and sailors operating. So for engineering duty officers, what does that mean? I think the first thing it means is what are we doing? What are you doing to actually deliver on that number one priority? Vice Admiral Moore used to talk about, hey, if you're the person that's accepting the 1 day slip and finishing something, and that kind of cascades into the next effort, then we're part of the problem, right? We need to be questioning absolutely everything and delivering these things on time. So I think we all need to kind of look at what are we doing as individuals, as engineering duty officers. This is our bread and butter. What are we doing to meet that number one CNO and NAVSEA priority of on-time delivery? So I think that's one thing that we can all do. And again, it's bread and butter. This is every single one of our mentor groups. It's all of us. All of us have a part to play in that. The second thing I think is sort of in the why part. I think there's a little bit of motivation that comes from understanding why it is, and I think it's a really important for us to stay connected with the operating fleet. Especially as you move up as an engineering duty officer, the more senior you get, you need to keep an eye on what are your peers doing. When you're a commander, keep in mind your peers are commanding destroyers at sea, going toe to toe with would-be adversaries. We have to stay connected to that. We have to understand what's their environment? How are they using our systems? How are they using the ships and the submarines and everything else? And so it's really incumbent on us to stay connected, and it requires active involvement. Nobody's going to come to you and say, hey, did you see what this strike group did? You're going to have to reach out for things like post-deployment briefs, things like that. So it's really critical that we stay connected with the operating fleet. We we have a lot of people that are on the, various, fleet staffs, TICOM staffs, PAC fleet staff, fleet forces. Those people have, are really tuned into what's going on, and so use them as a resource to stay connected. But it's critical, because how we operate our Navy is changing very rapidly. And trust me, when they're deployed, they are thinking about fighting tonight. So we need to be geared up for that.
Well, Admiral, last question for you. And in fact, you mentioned The Economist earlier, but I'm going to broaden the aperture a little bit and incorporate other resources. But what have you read lately, or that you've really enjoyed, or do you have any other book recommendations or other resource recommendations for the EDO community?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I took on as the sort of leadership development framework champion within the Flag Wardroom. And one of the things that we have going on is we have a book club, for example. So I don't want to stray too far with my book recommendations, but I'd say the last, so we had one going within the Canon Caucus for some time and read a few books there. The last one that we just finished up was called Freedom's Forge. I think it should be required reading for every engineering duty officer. It's a pretty incredible story of how business came together to become essentially the arsenal of democracy. It's an incredible story of how a few people can make a huge difference, but also how amazing our ability is to mobilize. So that was a great read. There was also some good sort of trust and confidence themes that kind of went through there that kind of lead directly back to leader development, which is kind of the reason why we're doing the EDO book club. But that was a great read. And right now we've just started a book, and the IW mentor group is leading a book called Super Forecasting. So all about probability and statistics, and how do you make better forecasts. So those are a couple of recommendations. My main recommendation is check out the book club. It's on Slack. It's easy enough to do. You connect with the rest of the community and read some good books. As far as staying connected with kind of what's going on in the world, I really recommend The Economist. It's a weekly. It's tough to get through the whole thing because there's just a lot in it. But there's a digital version of it. But it really it will really show you what's going on in the world, and just look at things like the recent clash between India and China. The things that China's doing in the South China Sea, the bullying that they're doing. They sank a fishing vessel. There's just so much going on in the world. It's a great place to kind of stay on top of all of that. And I just use the examples of China, but it's really sort of all over the world. I'd just like to kind of finish up, if I could, with a couple of kind of closing thoughts. I think everybody ought to take a look at, and I know this is about leadership at all levels, but I think there's when you look at the leader development framework, there's these three sort of key tenets in there of competence, character, and connections, and the development of each of those in the individual. And there's a document called the Charge of Command that everybody who puts a command pin on gets to usually assign it as a page 13 or something like that. And it really kind of ties together these various concepts. But one of the things that's highlighted in the latest version that's in the Navy's leader development framework is a commander's competence and character lead to trust and confidence. And so when we ask people, or frankly demand people, especially engineering duty officers, when we demand the leadership to say, hey, what am I doing to make sure that I'm delivering on time? There has to be a certain amount of trust and confidence in the entire organization that you are going to do that you have the competence to carry that out, and that you're trustworthy and all that sort of stuff. So again, competence and character, lead to trust and confidence in your ability to lead. So really, really important tenets. And then, of course, connections, making sure that we're all, also bigger than sort of just this part of our lives, right? Making sure that we're connected to the rest of the communities and whatnot, and, how we define ourselves. So a lot of good stuff in the leader development framework, but directly related to our ability to do mission command throughout the Navy. So anyways, with that, turn it back over to you.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Admiral, again for joining us today, and we wish you good luck in your next assignment and fair winds following season. Hopefully, COVID doesn't complicate your trek out west too much, but we hope to talk to you again in the future.
All right.
Thank you for joining us in the wardroom. Special thanks to our sound engineer, Lieutenant Andrew Rowley. If you have questions you would like our guests to answer, comments, or suggestions, you can email us at thewardroompodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to meeting again in the wardroom.